Red Bull Racing, A-. The championship leaders are still ahead, but the grip on dominance has loosened compared to last season. Max Verstappen has already taken 7 wins in 11 races, including dominant drives in Bahrain, Imola, and Barcelona. He's still the most complete driver on the grid, making the RB21 look like a cheat code on Saturdays and uncatchable on Sundays. But beneath the surface, things are getting messy. Sergio Perez is the problem. Again, he started strong with podiums in Bahrain and Jeddah, but since Monaco, his form has collapsed. 5 straight qualifying exits before Q3. 3 of them in Q1. In Canada, he crashed out after a bad call to switch early to slicks, then retired again in Austria after running dead last. That weekend sealed it. Red Bull renewed Verstappen through 2028, but Checo's name wasn't in any future plans. The constructors' lead has shrunk. McLaren and Ferrari have closed the gap race by race, and for the first time since 2022, Red Bull looks vulnerable. Adrian Newey announced his exit by the end of the year, a seismic shift. He won't influence the 2026 car. That adds pressure now, because this is the last season where the team has all their pieces together. Even Christian Horner's presence has drawn scrutiny, with paddock noise growing louder about the team's long-term structure. Red Bull is still ahead, but the aura of perfection is gone. The car is quick. Max is locked in. But as a team, the edge is slipping. McLaren. Their upgrade package didn't just work, it launched them into the title fight. Since Miami, they've been in attack mode. Lando Norris finally broke through with his first career win in Florida, then followed it with back-to-back podiums in Imola and Monaco. He's now consistently qualifying in the top 3 and trading fastest laps with Verstappen on pure pace. Oscar Piastri has matched that energy. His qualifying in Spain and second-place finish in Austria showed he's no second driver. The two are pushing each other hard, but cleanly, a rarity in top-tier pairings. The car is balanced, the pit wall is sharp, and the team's development rate has outpaced both Ferrari and Red Bull in recent rounds. Trackside calls have been spot on, and tyre management has become a strength, not a liability. Team principal Andrea Stella's low-key leadership is paying off. No drama, just results. After years of promise with no delivery, McLaren is finally in position to strike, and they're making every weekend count. Ferrari, B+. Ferrari finally delivered a clean weekend in Monaco, and it meant everything. Charles Leclerc ended the home race curse with a dominant win from pole, backed by a Carlos Sainz podium that proved the car had real race pace. That wasn't a fluke. Ferrari's been in the mix all year, holding their own in Spain, Austria, and Canada. But the ghosts of past strategy calls still hover. In Austria, indecision on tyre timing cost Leclerc a chance at a podium. In Canada, Sainz looked set for a top 5 before a late crash ended it. The speed is there. The consistency isn't. Both drivers have shown flashes of leadership. Leclerc's qualifying form remains elite, while Sainz's racecraft in mixed conditions has kept Ferrari punching above their weight when Red Bull stumbles. The in-season upgrades worked, especially the floor package introduced in Imola, but execution has been the difference between winning and watching. Team boss Frédéric Vasseur has calmed the chaos, but the fans want trophies. Midway through the season, Ferrari's back in the fight. They just need to stop tripping over themselves to stay there. Mercedes. C. Life after Lewis hasn't been kind to Mercedes. 11 rounds in, and they're still searching for rhythm. The W15 showed early promise during testing, but it's been unpredictable ever since. One weekend, they're on the edge of the top 5. The next, they're fighting to escape Q2. George Russell has kept things afloat with solid drives in Australia and Imola, but podiums remain out of reach. The team's biggest story wasn't on the track, it was in the garage. Teenage sensation Andrea Kimi Antonelli was officially confirmed as Russell's teammate for 2026. That announcement shifted the spotlight away from performance and straight onto the future. Toto Wolff has made it clear 2026 is the target. In the meantime, they've struggled with tyre warm-up, drag on long straights, and inconsistency through mid-speed corners. The car still doesn't respond well to setup changes from track to track. Despite the legacy, Mercedes feels stuck in limbo, not fast enough to fight for wins, not slow enough to panic, just caught between eras, hoping their long game pays off. Aston Martin, C-. They opened the season quietly and stayed quiet. Fernando Alonso grabbed a podium in Australia that hinted at something bigger. But since then, they've drifted. No pace in Monaco, nothing special in Silverstone, and by round 11 they've scored fewer points than RB. The AMR25 lacks bite. Cornering stability's down, development stalled after the first upgrade cycle, and their straight-line speed has fallen behind McLaren, Ferrari, and even Williams at times. Alonso's still squeezing everything from it, qualifying inside the top 10 and making the most out of midfield scraps. But there's only so much you can do with a car that's plateaued. Lance Stroll's results haven't helped. He's consistently qualifying behind his teammate and rarely climbing through the field. With Audi and other factory-backed teams stepping up, Aston looks less like a threat and more like a placeholder. The team has invested heavily in new facilities, but that hasn't translated into track performance. Mike Crack insists the direction is right. The scoreboard disagrees. If they're planning a comeback, they'll need more than patience. They'll need speed, and soon. Visa Cash App RB B+. This team showed up with a new name, a bold livery and, surprisingly, actual pace. After years stuck in Red Bull's shadow, RB has become a genuine midfield disruptor. Yuki Tsunoda is the headline. He's been in Q3 more times than Sergio Perez this season and scored points in 7 of the first 11 rounds. His drive in Imola? Precise? Canada? Clinical? He's cleaned up the radio, tightened his racecraft, and officially stepped up as team leader. On the other side, Daniel Ricciardo has struggled. Missed Q2 5 times, finished outside the points in 6 straight races. The team publicly backed him after Silverstone, but rumours are swirling, and Liam Lawson's name hasn't left the paddock. The car itself is a sharp midfield tool, good traction out of slow corners, solid straight-line performance, and one of the most consistent pit crews in the game. The updates brought to Miami and Austria both landed clean, helping RB stay ahead of Haas and Alpine. At halfway, they're not just surviving, they're picking off bigger names one weekend at a time. For a team once treated like a junior program, RB is making a serious case to be taken seriously. Haas, C-. Quiet progress, but still nowhere near the spotlight. Haas came into 2025 with low expectations and a new team principal in Ayao Komatsu. And so far, they've delivered exactly that. Stable, unspectacular midfield racing. Nico Hülkenberg has led the charge, pulling the VF25 into Q3 multiple times, including standout Saturdays in Australia and Spain. On Sundays, he's managed to turn those into points with clean, mistake-free drives. Kevin Magnussen, meanwhile, has lagged behind. One-lap pace has been inconsistent, and wheel-to-wheel moments in Jeddah and Monaco raised questions about race awareness. By round 8, Hülkenberg had doubled his teammates' point tally. The car isn't quick on paper, but it handles better over a full race than last year's tyre-chewing nightmare. The new setup philosophy has made them more predictable, even if that predictability means running P12 most weekends. There's no drama, no blown-up radios, no wild strategy. Just a team keeping its head down and banking whatever points come their way. In a crowded midfield, that's enough to stay relevant, but only just. Alpine, F. This has been a full-scale collapse. Alpine scored 0 points in the first 5 rounds, and when they finally did break through in Miami, it was only because of retirements ahead. The A524 is overweight, inconsistent in corners, and nowhere on straights. By Canada, they were fighting Haas just to avoid Q1 exits. That's how far they've dropped. Then came Monaco. Esteban Ocon collided with teammate Pierre Gasly. Again, the result? Ocon was handed a 5-place grid penalty, publicly slammed by team boss Bruno Famin, and dropped from the next race in Canada. Jack Doohan stepped in, marking the first open driver rotation of the season. It said everything. Internally, Alpine is shaking. Technical staff turnover, mid-season leadership meetings, and growing noise that Renault is reconsidering the entire project. Gasly has managed to stay clean and pick up scraps, but the car gives him nothing to work with. The relationship between the drivers is clearly strained, and morale in the garage has cratered. 11 rounds in, Alpine isn't chasing points. They're just trying to stop the bleeding. The season's not over, but for this team, it feels like it's already been lost. Williams, D. They walked into 2025 hoping to build on last year's momentum. Instead, they've slid backward. The FW47 lacks top-end speed, struggles in slow corners, and eats its tyres early. The car's biggest strength? Alex Albon. Once again, he's carrying the team. He's dragged it into quarter 2 and occasionally quarter 3, most recently in Imola and Spain, turning raw effort into points when others make mistakes. His defensive driving against Aston Martin in Montreal was textbook. Elbows out, eyes forward, no errors. Logan Sargent, on the other hand, hasn't improved. After multiple crashes in China and Miami, he's now on thin ice. The team replaced him with Mercedes junior Kimi Antonelli during FP1 sessions, fueling speculation he won't see out the season. His point tally still sits at 0. James Vowles has been clear. This is a long-term rebuild. They're investing in infrastructure, engineering staff, and simulations. But on Sundays, none of that shows up yet. The updates brought to Silverstone didn't land. Reliability's been shaky, and the midfield is tighter than ever. Right now, Albon's dragging the team toward relevance. Everyone else is just trying to keep up. Stake F1, D-. The most forgettable car on the grid, and not just because of the livery. 11 rounds in, Stake F1 hasn't scored a single point. The C44 has no standout strength. It's unstable under braking, draggy on the straights, and can't hold pace over a full stint. Bottas and Zhou are stuck in Q1 almost every weekend, and race results hover between P16 and P19. Bottas has remained professional, still getting the most out of poor machinery, but the ceiling is low. Zhou has had flashes, notably in China, but no breakthrough. The real story? Audi. Even though their full takeover doesn't start until 2026, their fingerprints are everywhere already. Leadership, branding, staffing. The team switched to Kick branding on the chassis, but it's all just placeholders. Internally, development is frozen. No major upgrades since round 5. All resources are being channeled into Audi's 2026 project, leaving the current lineup on uncertain footing. Both drivers are effectively racing on borrowed time, while other teams fight for pride, stakes playing the long game. The problem is, their present is disappearing in the process. And that's it. So here's the question. If you had full control of one F1 team for the rest of 2025, no budget limits, no politics, which team would you bet on to flip the script? And which one would you tear down completely? Drop your picks below, leave a like, and make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss our next video.